Mm-mm. And we're live.
What's up? It's your boy, John Darko Chapman. And to my left, technically right, depending on how you're looking at the screen, so forth. Shout out to my mans,
Robert Waters.
Robert Waters, Graphite, as he's also known
That's
on
me.
the good old social media internet. And yeah, man. So we're here again, another episode. Welcome to the Cre8tive Pit, where we talk about everything creative, especially visually, anything from arts to all the form of creative arts. So that's what film,
Photography, film,
photography,
graphic design,
acting, graphic
act,
design, computer
anything that we can,
animation, illustration,
all
arts,
of that.
fine arts, and all that good stuff. We will be doing a little bit of music and stuff here and there.
Yeah, every
We
now
try
and
not to
again.
incorporate too much music just because like there's so many music everything channels and podcasts and all that kind of stuff, like,
Oh
we don't
man,
want to do too much, but I plan to bring on some engineers and producers and so forth in the industry doing their thing and get a little feedback on that. I think it's important too because especially in the video film category, which I know a lot of people that watch this are on, and that's usually aside for visual that they're just like, I don't know anything about music engineering, music production, all that stuff, recording is a whole
Under,
different ball of wax.
yeah, understanding
So
audio in general. You wanna have that. So it's important.
yeah, so it is a thing, and it's a lot of a thing. I have a background in uh, audio engineering and all that kind of stuff, and trust me, it's a whole reason. It's a whole college grad, and you can get your masters in it and all kinds of stuff. And I
Hmm.
hope to bring on a
Yeah,
couple
they do.
good friends and well known people. Probably the biggest I'm looking to bring on is probably Noah Goldstein. He is Kanye West's main engineer and was my
Oh
college
wow,
roommate and good friend. So
nice.
hopefully we can bring him on.
That's a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
time.
So we'll bring on some people on the West. But anyway, yeah, man. So as usual, we usually get to a little bit of the news and everything else. Shout out to Kevin D. Blackston. What's going on, bro?
What's happened, Kevin?
Tuning in as always. Kevin is also a photographer and good dude, good, awesome friend. Came down to my first studio when I built it, I remember. And I was working with his cousin, as I remember. Where is your cuz, man? That's a whole nother story. Um, Kevin is also Kevin. Please put in the chats and please remind me your cousin or your brother or your uncle. I forget what it is Michael D. Blackston, right? The comedian,
Oh
right?
really? Oh
I
wow.
think so, right? I'm not wrong on that. I don't know. Anyway, Kevin will let me know in a minute. Dane, that's right. Um, yep, I was right. See, is he your uncle or your cousin? I totally forget. Anyway,
Hmm.
but yeah, man. Funny enough, so I'm going off sidetrack here, but my little cousin is with your. He's Dane's uncle. Okay, so my little cousin is with Michael Blackson right now, and they just
Oh,
did some kind of reality show or something. My cousin does magic and all this other stuff. We're gonna have him on soon too. That's 3 degrees of separation, Rob. How I introduced you to what's his face and all that. But he's actually becoming famous. He has like a million some followers and all this
oh,
crazy
geez.
stuff. And yeah, he just did a whole show with what's his name? Jurassic Park. Help me out.
Uh, uh,
Um,
you talking about the
the Fly. The Fly.
the fly? Hold on.
God, why can't I
Oh,
think of
you're
his name?
talking about oh gosh, what's his name with glasses? What the heck
You
is
know
his
what I'm talking
name?
about,
I know
right?
exactly who you're
Thor.
talking about. Yeah,
Help me out here.
what's his name? Oh gosh.
Um.
Uh,
Anyway, but
shoot.
he just did a show. He has his own show on Disney Plus. My cousin was featured on it, and yada yada yada. And Jeff Goldblum, thank you.
That's his name. He's
And
from Pittsburgh too, I think. Isn't he?
really,
I think
that's weird.
so.
That explains the mannerisms.
Yeah.
And everything else. So it's very, very interesting. But yeah, man, let's get into it. News as usual. What is going on right now? Anything on your side of the neck of the woods, sir?
Nothing crazy. I know Canon's coming out. They're releasing the R7. So getting a mirrorless crop sensor, it looks like. So it'll be, kind of the 7D replacement. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually working. Shout out. Hopefully she'll come on the show tonight. Tiffany.
Hmm.
I have a new assistant. She's a young lady, very awesome. It's funny because Xavier we had on the show a couple days ago. He's my other
Hmm.
assistant. Tiffany kind of works with Xavier hand in hand, and it was funny having them two together. Well, having her and meeting her because her mannerisms were exactly like Xavier.
That's funny.
Like they talk the same and everything. I'm just like, are y'all related?
So I was gonna say, is that a youth thing or is that something else?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's a youth thing a little bit, like this, like just laid back. Like I don't know. I don't care. I'm just doing. But
Philly
like
youth.
probably I don't know. But like super sweet lovers. Little thing was like tiny little thing about 100 some pounds. I had her lifting up giant tea stands and giant all this and running around with me, and she didn't lose a beat, man. She was on point.
That's dope.
And yeah, so she's definitely gonna be working with me in the future. Shout out to John Harvell. What's up, bro? What's
What's good,
going on,
John?
man? All the way from Cali, California, IA. John is a dope photographer who works a lot in film.
Yeah,
Um, film, I mean film photography,
yeah.
as well as
Actual
exactly.
limited film in your camera photography.
Exactly. I believe John lives somewhere near the desert. He's out towards like, I don't know if you guys know a little bit about California, but California is like, you guys usually hear about Los Angeles and then the north, like Bayside area and San
Hmm.
Francisco and all that. Those are like the middle, whatever, near the ocean, all nice, whatever. Then you go away from that, and then it gets into like the desert and whatever, and it turns into mountains and in the forest. And Cali's a very interesting place. But where is it? In the high desert. All right. Are you on
Ah,
the Death Valley side or are you on more like Palm Springs side? I don't know. He's gonna tell me
I've
in a
only
second.
I've only been to L.A.
Only been
in
to LA?
California. Yeah,
Did you
that's
never
it.
like went
That's
out? You can't
n-
just be in LA and not
well.
go.
So
You didn't go to the
when
beach. You didn't go
when
to
well, I mean, we went to the beach, but when I went to California, the last time I went, I think I've been there more than once, but when I was a child. But the last time I went, I only had a day off of work. Basically, I barely had a day off of work, so I had to go stay a day and leave. So I had enough time to, we hit the beach. I got some Roscoe's chicken and waffles, and then we left.
can't be Roscoe's. Can't be. Did you go to the See, I was in the Roscoe's in so every time I go to LA, every time I go out to Cali, period, I usually stay now in Long Beach. It's
Hmm.
a little bit cheaper, it's a lot nicer and chiller. You know what I mean? Not so much crazy stuff. There'd be some Vatos Locos down there, but like it's more chill. And then I like drive up like LA is like an hour away. Not even like it's about an hour in traffic. And then hit whatever else.
Right, right.
But the Roscoe, there's several Roscoe's in Cali, but the
Hmm.
one in Long Beach has a comedy club attached to it.
Mm.
So you get your Roscoe's, you know what I mean, and go and enjoy a comedy show
Man,
while you eating a giant
so I've
waffle.
had this idea for a long time, at opening up a comedy club slash Waffle House or waffle spot, and
So no
call
one's
it
too
the
late.
R. It's going to be called, but the name is why it's gold. It's going to be called the ROFL House, pronounced the Raffle House.
Boo.
That's dope. That's dope. Somebody's going to take it. I hope somebody makes it.
All right, so John said, yeah, he's more towards Death Valley. So Death Valley, like if you ever go that direction, that's one of the most interesting things. Kind of paint a picture for Cali. Cali's very like if Cali wasn't so expensive, I would live in
Jeez.
Cali.
Yeah, it's
I love
expensive.
Cali, man. Absolutely love Cali. There's a reason people love California when they go there because it's just nothing like it.
Hmm.
The interesting thing about Cali is like you can leave Los Angeles, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll start on the crazy highways. You see like the 8-lane traffic and all that. You
Mm,
start
yeah.
going up, right? And the further you go north, this is what starts happening. It's like, let's say you're on the highway, right? I'm trying to see it. The
Mm-hmm.
incline
It just
starts
starts
going like
going up.
this.
Hmm.
Like literally, and you can see the highway going up. You
That's
be like,
wild.
yo, hold on. You be hitting the gas and your
And
car ain't
that's
even doing nothing. And you be
and that's
like,
where
yo,
those streets with the guardrail, you feel like you're about to fall right off the road type deal.
that's what I was getting at. So then once you
Yeah.
get up there, then you're in the valley. And then once
Mm-hmm.
you get past the valley, you're in Death Valley.
Oh,
And then
geez.
Death Valley is like the desert and all that stuff. Right. And then once you're up there, like to get to it, right, you got two ways. You can take a main highway, and the
Mm-hmm.
highway's kind of normal, it just goes ridiculously up. Or you can take the back road scenic route if there's too much traffic, because Cali traffic is a whole nother level.
Hmm.
And then you're literally going through the mountains up a whole trail. But the thing
Oh,
with
wow.
this trail is there is no guardrail
Jeez.
whatsoever, no lights, no nothing.
That sounds
So if
insane.
the light, so if it's dark at night, put it like this. Now I remember the first time we went, we shot a music video up there. I'll never forget this. On the way back, we were dreading it. We
Hmm.
were like, bro, we can't go back that way. I'm going to crash, bro. We're gonna fall off the side of a mountain. There's no
Jeez.
lights out there. We
Is
were, we was nervous driving up in the broad
uh
blooming freaking. That's
so you
another
got,
thing.
oh my gosh.
That's another thing with Cali. Like you'll start driving, right? We didn't experience it so much that way, but when you go south, right, going towards like Palm Springs, it's like you see the big windmills, and it turns into like Joshua Tree and all the desert stuff, right? I'll never forget this, bro. We're looking at I'm in a rental car. I'm looking at the temperature, right? And the temperature starts spiking. It starts going from like 60. I'm sorry, it was like maybe 70 to like 80 to 90 to 100 to 110 to 120 to 130. And then we're like, yo, how hot is it outside? We got out the car. It was like,
Oh, you get right
like,
back in here.
yo,
That sounds insane.
it's a whole different level in Cali, man. I swear.
But
But
I
it's
really
fun,
want
man.
I want
I
to see the
love
sequoias, man. Like I that's what I want to see.
You said the
The
sequoias? Oh,
yeah, the redwoods. Yeah.
redwoods. So
Yeah.
that's going towards the Death Valley. So that's like
Okay.
you hit the valley, and then you go more. I want to say it's right if you go off if you're like towards like the main valley area, like Rodeo Drive and all that.
Gotcha.
If you bear more right and start going off, and you start hitting towards that. I might be wrong. I don't know. It's been a while, but so John lives out there. The cool thing with that, and I'll wrap this up, is the fact that it's a desert like you see in movies. That's why they shoot out there all the time. Yeah, temps is going up. Northern Cali is beautiful. Yeah, that's why you have all the forest fires and stuff too. Yeah. But it's like it's the scenes you see in movies, literally. So he's out. He can shoot that every day. That's crazy. I'd be jealous of him.
I wonder if you get tired of it when it's just there all the time.
I'm pretty sure. Sure.
That's wild. That's
still beats where we're at. Northeast sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the hills here. I mean, the hills are nice. Like
we
Pittsburgh
got hills
are
and
nice.
Forests that's nice, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's not Cali. It's not.
Nah.
Not even a little bit. I live 395. I just got to go a few hours to get to Yosemite. Gotcha. Yeah. So he's real near the redwoods and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I'd love to go there. Absolutely love to.
Yeah, right. But yeah. So I've worked with the Canon 6, the R6, the R5. That's about all I've done.
I want the R5C, man. That's
C300 and 100 and all that stuff I've worked with. So I mean, Canon. Once again, all the cameras have gotten to the point of what
it doesn't matter. You just use what you like.
I'm very interested in what this Chinese company is about to do with this little red killer they created.
Yeah. I saw that. That does look interesting. That'll be really interesting.
And I think Ari's getting ready to bring something else out.
Okay.
I think Ari's going to bring out a more consumer-friendly camera, which is going to be a problem. If that comes out and it's cheap or like
if they hit that price, that
price point somewhere around 10 grand or less.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be a problem because I'm going to go buy it. Shoot, I'm trying to figure out how to finance an Ari Mini now for myself.
Jeez.
But I'm still sticking with Sony. I'm a Sony guy. On and on. Anyway, what else? Let's get into some more news before we get started. Top Gun. Tom Cruise. The only reason I want to mention Top Gun is for the simple fact because they use a Sony Venice for the whole thing.
Nice.
And it looks amazing. I heard nothing but good reviews for it.
Oh, good.
The biggest thing with that is just because Tom Cruise is crazy and Tom Cruise. He flew the fighter jets.
Are you serious?
Yeah, you gotta watch it. Dude, they show him in the cockpit and leaving the aircraft carrier. And I know one person that worked on it, and they were saying that they were like, bro, it was like they didn't even tell us. They was like, we were setting up the main cockpit view, and because what they did was, so the Sony Venice has like a detachment system, right? So because it's a big camera, it's like a big box thing, just like the Ari. And what you can do is they made this like separate attachment with this long cord that you can use and attach to like a gimbal system or whatever you want to make it lighter, and you can take the big thing and put it on your back or wherever, right? So they set it up where they had two of the main big body cameras sitting on top of the cockpit, and then they had one on top that was the extension. And so they made it so they had a 3-camera system that could be directly on the target and then on the back of them. So you can basically get the feel of them in the cockpit and see that they're actually flying the planes.
Rigging
So
that up
60, how old is Tom Cruise? He's like 59. 60-year-old Tom Cruise
flying
got in a fighter jet,
decided I'm gonna fly
took off the air. Hold on. And this is the crazy part. He was like, they set up the camera, and then Tom Cruise comes out, and they're like, "Oh, Tom Cruise, shaking hands on the aircraft carrier." It's like, "Oh, it's fun, blah blah blah." And he's just like, "All right, man." And he kept asking the question. He was like, "Yo, why aren't we setting up the back cockpit?" And they were like, "What for?" And he was like, for the pilot." And they were like, "Oh, you're good, bro. Just set it up." He's just like, "All right." Sets it up. Tom Cruise comes out, sticks everybody's hands, whatever. Gets in the cockpit and it's just like 1, 2, okay, boom, and off he goes. And they're like, "Did he just fly the plane?"
Wow.
And like, yeah.
Wow.
Like,
what's his name? Harrison Ford flies. I know he be helping people in the air. Like people will be flying.
Bro,
so every now and again, Harrison Ford
flying a fighter pilot plane that hits Mach 5 and 6, which can put you unconscious, and he's 60 years old. It's a whole different level, bro.
It's different.
It's a whole different level. So yeah. Tom Cruise. I don't think Tom Cruise is human. I don't think
he's nuts, man. I
would Hollywood craziness. He's drinking tiger blood and baby
man.
Blood. Who knows?
Yep. All right. Anything else going on?
If you thought that was cool, a 90-year-old guy flew an old fighter plane. Old fighter plane ain't the same as flying an F-22.
Yeah,
going.
So you talking about the
7, 8, some crazy stuff, breaking the sound barrier. Like, do you realize average people flying past the sound barrier will automatically pass out?
Jeez. Yeah.
And
you got to be trained for it. Yeah.
He's 60. I'm 40 and I'm not in the shape he's in.
I can only imagine like the rigging for that thing too, man. That'd be a crazy camera rig, the way they had to rig it up to stay
honestly
on the plane.
I don't think it's crazy. It's just more stabilization because they're so small. It's the beauty of cameras now. They're so small, they're so easy. Like there's not that much you got to do to them. And they're shooting it wide, so they probably had like small, like 30, not even like 24 millimeter, 18 millimeter lenses. So they're very small and wide and close to the camera, and it makes sense.
Just keeping them stuck on there, not so they don't fly off as he's doing his loop de loops.
Yeah, Kevin said that's what took so long for the movie to learn.
He had to learn.
No, not actually. What made it so long was the pandemic, because they actually finished it before the pandemic, and it was supposed to come out right when the pandemic happened, and then they knew they had such a good movie. They was like, we ain't going to no streams. It was like, we just wait.
We want people to go see this movie.
And I've heard nothing but good things. I'm gonna be in the first row watching it for sure. But all right, let me shut up. Let's get to it. We have an awesome guest today, for sure.
Marie, actor and producer. So yeah, let's bring her up. How's it going, Say?
Hi, how are you guys?
Hello.
So I met Say on another podcast I used to do a while ago. Her fiance was on the podcast, and I met Say. We've worked together a lot. We've done headshot events for other creatives and actors, actresses, musicians, other people who needed that kind of work done. And she's just been an awesome person all around. Watch her do commercials, and you have a movie coming out soon, right?
I have a few movies coming out, actually.
There we go.
There's a comedy feature film called Movers Ultimate that comes out on July 22nd. That'll be on Apple TV, Amazon, and Vudu.
Nice.
So big players there. Nice. And then I have 2 shorts in festivals right now, and one of them is doing really, really well. It's called Artificial Existence. Just won Best Actress and Best Film at the Budapest Film Festival last week, and I think 10 or 15 awards at other festivals. So nice. I'll be able to give the full list of that soon. And then also another feature film, which you guys might be aware of because part of it's shot here in Pittsburgh. It's called Unsinkable, about the Titanic sinking. And that actually just wrapped production. It was a 5-year journey. between casting and wrapping. So now we're just waiting on a release date for that, but that'll be in theaters too.
That's awesome.
Very nice. Very,
Yeah.
very nice. I'm noticing behind you. I see a few
I'm
statues sitting
see
right
the
there.
awards and everything.
Oh, those are the Telly Awards. So funny enough, that's where the producer in my title comes from, because I went to school for production and acting, and the pandemic kind of made us all as creatives reevaluate a lot of things. And for me, that shift was creating my own work. And so a female producer friend of mine, Ali Mazzoni, we decided to create our own web series that could be done during the height of COVID. And it was like a Christmas themed rom-com web series. And we put it out. Basically, it was just our way of creating during a time that, the industry was completely shut down. And it went on and it won 3 Telly Awards. I won for Best Actor, Best Director and Producer, and then also it was Best Remote Production. So those are my Tellys. And
That's
I'm actually
awesome.
on my judging council for the Telly Awards now. They asked
That's
me to
very nice.
represent the film and TV category just a couple months ago. So that's a new badge that I wear that I'm excited about.
That's awesome. So
Very
tell us more about that experience through the pandemic, because I know the way that you guys were producing and actually creating stuff was a little different during the pandemic. Walk us through what you guys were doing during that time.
It was not a little different. It was completely different. We essentially, I don't know if either of you have ever been on a film set, but film sets can range. Okay. So that film sets can range from small indie projects where you might have a crew of 10 people and each person is wearing 10 hats. And things take a lot longer to happen because
I've been on everything from a Tromaville to a Marvel. So
yeah. So I was gonna say, to the opposite end of the spectrum, where you might have 10 people doing one hat, just for efficiency's sake. So this was such an experience because we basically had to create a quarantine bubble and also follow the rules of the actors union that I'm in, which is SAG-AFTRA. So they were very strict about keeping a quarantine set. And we also had to do our casting very strategically. We had to get people that would agree to get tested right before they came to set and then get tested as soon as they showed up to set. We actually wrote in some characters that only interacted virtually with the lead, which I played the lead. And so there was a best friend character that I would only Zoom with, and then I would only FaceTime with my parents. The only actor that we wrote in person was the love interest, and he actually had a health condition, so he was like very concerned about. We had to be extra strategic about making sure that we had a safe set, especially for his sake. So we went above and beyond with, sanitizing and writing it in a strategic way, filming it in a strategic way. We had to film in 3 days, the entire series. And then we made sure that all of his scenes were on the first day, that he was then gone. So that it was only the 2 of us at risk. And quite literally, she and I did the entire thing. We had one other person on set with us that was kind of producing and helping with a lot of stuff, but we filmed it, directed it, produced it, wrote it, acted in it, did wardrobe, did set, did props, like everything. So it was quite the experience. But like I said, we were honestly just trying to have fun and using it as a creative outlet for ourselves. We did not expect for it to go so well.
Nice.
And we did not expect to receive recognition for it, but
congrats.
What we did.
Yeah.
Sure, man.
That opened some doors too, which was amazing.
Yeah, the pandemic has changed so much. It's funny. I actually was gearing up and putting the last things together, got a nice financial back. I had a lot of people that were super in support to what I was getting ready to do for a pilot for a TV show right before the pandemic happened. And then the pandemic happened. And we were supposed to shoot in India. for the first
Oh, wow.
episode for the pilot, and yeah, all that got shut down. And
actually, I can really relate to you on that one because I went into pre-production for pilot spec in 2019, and we filmed from January 2020 to March 2020. And I think it was like a week after we wrapped that the pandemic hit the US and everything shut down. And the landscape of streaming and distribution in general in the film industry just completely changed. Like at that point, they basically had to decide to put it on hold because they didn't know what was going to happen because the industry just shut down. And then during the pandemic, everything changed because we're getting our content a different way. We used to go to theaters. Now we don't go to theaters so much. Everything's streaming. There's a million different streamers. I was just reading an article yesterday, actually, an executive from Netflix said that they basically put a statement out there saying this is what we're looking for now, but that what Netflix is looking for changes every single day.
Oh, let's not get started on Netflix.
Can't even really care.
Bro, I have between literally stock investments, literally that I have in Netflix, to just what I had invested from a show and a bunch of other stuff and so forth. Man, it's done changed so rapidly and so fast. What is we're going to jump around a little bit. Usually we start with how you got into this and so forth, but we already in deep in conversation.
Yeah, right.
So tell us a little bit, like, what do you think right now, especially from, I guess you could say, pandemic starting to, I guess, hopefully the end of it, or at least some normalcy back to complete normal.
Right.
How do you see streaming right now and just kind of where everything is at with it?
It's so unpredictable. I mean, I'm having this conversation daily with my agent, my manager, and everybody, casting people that I'm sending auditions to. I just think it's really, like I said, it's hard to predict. And I'm sure you've seen shows that you didn't think were going to be canceled get canceled because they want to put their budget elsewhere. They don't have the budget to put into things like they used to. And then, Netflix has this reputation of like buying everything, but now they will buy nothing. That's the new thing, is they're not accepting any new content. So it literally changes day to day. And I think that the streamers are trying to figure things out just as much as we are. And that it really puts a lot of pressure on us as creatives, I think, as writers and performers, because we have to tell really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? We have to tell stories that really stand out.
Right.
Like it's always been that way, but now more than ever,
more unique.
We have to do something so unique that it stands out from everything else, to the point where a streamer will say, this is like nothing we've ever seen before. This is worth putting our time, money, and energy into. And it's even more money now because they have to spend a lot of money just to make a set safe. Like I literally did an audition today where I had to agree first to be on a quarantine set for an entire month.
Oh, wow.
It's wild.
That sounds insane.
Still how it is.
So Kevin D. Blackson says, due to the loss of money with these new shows and movies. I'll add a little to that, Kev, because it's weird now, especially with streaming. Because streaming, they don't necessarily make money directly off the shows. They do and they don't. They do as far as if the show hits really big, it can get them more subscribers, right? But it's still based off of a subscriber thing. So it's weird. It's so weird. Like it's so new. You know what I mean? Like it's no one really fully knows where this is going or what happens with it and everything else. The best thing that I've been able to determine with it is like Netflix has been the main one, of course. They started before everybody else. Everybody else is trying to catch up. I think what Netflix did was right and wrong all at the same time, and they didn't know, and I don't fully blame them.
Right.
Meaning that, yeah, it's just that new. Meaning that, like, Netflix took a course of, you know, we're gonna throw out all this content, create all this stuff, so on and so forth, take this gamble, so on. It kind of paid off, kind of didn't. They were in red for like ever, but their gross as much as their red, and then their net was like so this like mixed kind of thing. They were just like, fuck it, keep going. Right. And that's usually what you do when like you're grossing a certain amount in your net worth, and then what you're going to finance and kind of keep on top and keep going. And you know, it's usually what the rich do in a sense, or just making money and how you run a business. But what they started to do was going, okay, we got as many North American subscribers as we can get. Let's start focusing on overseas. And they started doing that. They started producing all these overseas content and all this other stuff. And a huge amount of stuff you see on Netflix is overseas. Overseas is how you get to, what was it, the Korean joint?
Oh,
the biggest one.
The Squid Game.
Was the Squid Games, right? Yeah, that's how you get the Squid Games and all that other stuff.
What a lot of people that aren't in the industry don't realize too is that these streamers, Netflix in particular, but I would maybe say Apple TV is exempt from this. I
love already in
Apple TV is doing. Apple TV actually focuses on like just true artistic content, and I love what they're doing. But
they got the money.
Yeah. But they're more focused on deep storytelling, which I just applaud them for that so much. But what I was saying is that people that aren't in the industry, what a lot of them don't realize is that Netflix and some other streamers, you know, when you start to watch a movie or a show, it'll always say a Netflix original or a Hulu original at the beginning title card. But a lot of times this content is produced by people, and it's just made by people with their own budget. And then once it's completely done, they then come to the streamer and try to sell it. And so if Netflix buys it, they'll pay them out just a lump sum or whatever, and then slap a Netflix original on the front. But I have learned that a lot of people don't realize that.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. That's very much the situation I was in. Still in, technically.
It makes a lot of sense though. Like when you look at their anime content, you know, like Baki. I know Netflix didn't produce Baki. You know what I mean? Like, but they'll say it's a Netflix original. Or what's the other one with Meliodas? And I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, there's a that's what they do with the anime content.
I would say a majority of it. They do produce quite a bit now, though, especially overseas. Once again, like I said, I think their strategy was good. But the problem was it kind of also alienated their American audience at the same time. And that's where they had that remember, so trust me, I remember I had to look at my stocks and my accountant called me on my banker, and they had a drop out of nowhere of like what $220 million on like a couple days of just subscribers that dropped off. And that's a combination of course, there's more streaming services now, and people want to check out other stuff and don't want to pay for all of them. And then the other half of it was like, okay, you're making a bunch of content that ain't for me. Because I think, and this has happened so often in America, where like people tend to, how should I say this without being, there's no politically correct way to say it, but people tend to forget the power of a combination of the Midwest, down south, and the majority of America, which is a formulation of what is not the big cities. Does that make sense? So like the big cities form under like what, New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, so on and so forth, right? But that's not what makes up the chunk of America. So then when you start making movies that are completely different than what Americans are used to, they tend to fall off a little bit from it compared to everything else. So it's weird. It's a good and a bad thing and so forth. And it's just, once again, it's one of those new things that I just don't think Netflix had any kind of way of predicting how it was going to go. I don't think what they did was wrong. I think I would have did the same thing if I ran that business and so forth. It's like, oh, we got everything we can here. Screw it. Let's go over here and see what's up. But you know, it just is what it is. So yeah.
I wonder what the impact is going to be on creators, because you know a story like Squid Game isn't the type of story you usually see in American films. It's just a different type of story. The
Squid Game is just a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Period.
it's just, you just wouldn't see that. That's not something that we would think of, I guess, is a weird way to say it. Or Sweet Home, Alice in Borderlands, like all of those K dramas are, it's just such a different way of telling stories. And I wonder what the impact is going to be on American storytelling after,
Yeah.
their success.
Yeah, John Harville says maybe they should open up more cameras than the requirements they have now. So I can actually speak on that, John. That's not true, actually. Actually, they opened it up a whole bunch. Believe it or not, you can use a whole lot of cameras now. You can use Blackmagic 6Ks. You can use Blackmagic Ursas. You can use Sony FX6s and FX9s. So believe it or not, so John, if you want, you can actually go on Netflix's main site, or if you just Google Netflix and camera requirements, and they actually have a list of the cameras that they require, or you can use, I should say. They do have a different bit of a list between feature and documentary and stuff like that. But you actually can see the breakdown of like what they will accept and not. And believe it or not, Netflix probably accepts them way more than the rest. I can tell you this, like almost every Amazon show is probably shot on an RE, and almost every minus like the stuff they buy, as I say, original content, and probably everything on Apple is probably just a combination of Red and RE. So Netflix is probably the most open of them all, minus like content that they're just buying, whatever, and so forth, as far as what they'll take for features that they're budgeting and paying for. So you actually be surprised on that. Because I was surprised on that, because we were looking to shoot everything Sony, and they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. I was like, word. So yeah, it's gonna
Nice. So what I would say, tell us a little bit about making a living as an actress or an actor. What's that like? If there's somebody that's trying to get into the space, what would you recommend as far as trying to move from, beginning to making a living?
That's a great question. And I've had several beginner actors that I've mentored that I've had to walk through that process. And what I always tell them is, this has been my experience, and this has been the experience of any other professional actor I know that makes a living doing their craft. Is that you will start out in the negative. You will pay in order to get credits. You will pay more money than you will make.
Interesting.
And what I mean by that is that when you have no reel, no resume, no credits, you have to get them somehow. So you're either going to, create scenes yourself, create short films yourself, or you're going to have to travel outside of where you live, pay for that, and a hotel and gas and everything. You might take a bunch of unpaid projects just to get some footage. But eventually, if you stick at it, for me, I think the mark was maybe 4 years. I had to do that until I broke even, and I got to the point where I had enough on my resume. I had enough in my reel, and I was working on my craft enough that I was getting paid more, and my travel and expenses were being covered. And then I broke even. And from that point forward, it's continued to climb to the point where sometimes I can't believe that I actually pay the bills with something that I love. But thing. Just for perspective, this has been a 10-year journey. I started acting professionally 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So that has been, my journey with it. But the other piece of advice I always offer is that when you're in that period where obviously you have to make money, you have to live. And I always tell these actors that are starting out that whatever you do in order to pay the bills, make sure it's still within your field, within your craft somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you're benefiting from. Now the advice that I give is like sign up for a site like We Audition and be a reader for other actors who need it for their auditions.
That's a good one.
You know,
That's
just,
interesting.
there's lots of different ways to. I know I have an actor friend who is the assistant for an acting coach. So as such, he gets paid, but also gets to attend all the classes because it's his job. So he gets, you know, the benefit of that education. I always just say, do something that will make you better at your craft at the same time, because without a doubt, 100% of the people that I met who were just entering the industry, who I'm going to use the word caved and ended up getting a 9-to-5 or an
Quit.
job or one of those soul suckers.
Oh, geez.
They quit.
They didn't see it as quitting at the time, but it's exactly
That's what
what
it
ended
was.
up happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then it took up all their time. They'd get home at the end of a long day. They
couldn't do it.
They couldn't do it. And also, this industry is so demanding. I actually spend more time on my job than any of my friends that have a 9-to-5. I mean, if I get an audition, most of the times the turnaround is 24 hours. So I have 24 hours to memorize. I almost swore. Can we swear?
Yeah.
Once we're past 30 minutes, I think we are.
Okay, good.
You're good.
I'm a cursor.
John already messed it up way at the beginning. It's
Did
cool.
I?
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Taylor. So sorry.
And you know, tape, understand what it is that I'm doing. I then edit it. I'm a very strategic person, so I got a production degree as well as my acting degree because,
Very smart,
and I have
by the way.
limited production knowledge, but I have just enough to make my self tapes look immaculate.
Yeah.
Rob and I were talking about this because he was.
Rob, did you do one? Did you do the one with her?
I did
one with
one
him,
with
yeah.
we did one together.
I think you showed me that.
He asked me to come in and
really
do
good.
a demo
Really,
one,
really
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But we were talking about that little tricks. Like I told him, you know, a lot of people I know, they just film it on their phone and they send it. I will bring it into Final Cut and I'll do like the Ken Burns, like slow zoom in the whole time.
Stuff.
And if it's a 2-minute scene, you have no idea it's zooming in.
Right.
But by the end of it, my face is like this. And you feel like you're seeing my soul. And I get booked a lot. So it's got to be doing something.
Yeah. That's interesting. That subtle motion. I personally, I just love that as an animation thing. And this is kind of a technical thing that's outside of, but that subtle motion like that, I absolutely love. And it just, the longer you can make a small motion, that it just really makes that really
People
nice.
don't even know that it's happening until the end.
It's a whole
You'd have
job.
to compare the beginning and the end to even know that it's
depending the size of the budget, and it's a whole job. I've been on sets where like we got one kid, that's all he does. Like he pushes and pulls
this thing
and real talk, and it sounds simple, but it ain't that simple, bro.
The focus puller,
especially focus all that.
I just wrapped on a short film called NWL. I'm gonna shout out Justin Mackey because that was he was the DP, but he also had to do this because indie film. And there was one scene where the other lead and we just have a conversation back and forth.
Oh my gosh!
And the director decided he wanted it to just every line, the focus change, and he's like,
and that's like a cool thing. Like like they have like these little wooden grips on them, and they're wireless, and the focus pulling is really interesting. Like as a specific job.
I hate focus pulling. I hate focus pulling.
It looks really hard. I don't think I can do it.
Soon, very soon. The technology, they're getting there. They're working on it to where we won't have to do that anymore. To where cinema lenses will be autofocus. They're getting there very, very slowly, but they're getting there. But until then, yeah, it's and they got some like extended focal machine pullers, whatever you want to call them. That are autofocused, like so they still do the eye tracking, but it's like completely separate and you attach it to the lens kind of deal.
Yeah,
but they're extremely new.
I give so much credit to any focus puller on an Apple TV show because all their shows are like Like I'm looking at Rob, your setup, how out of focus the background is. Everything is just so all in that style.
and they get it like spot on all the time. And that's I wonder about it because I'm like, how do you get used to knowing, you know, exactly how much you? It's something I'm sure you have to get a feel for over time. But that's yeah.
Already one of my assistants, Elliot Lopez. What's up, bro? Why you hating on because I wear Puma all the time? I'm just saying. What's wrong with Puma? Puma's
It's not a Puma.
Puma. Anyway, no, very much so. Very much so. Film is very interesting. If you could tell us a little bit about just kind of, you know, your journey a little bit of just where you're at now. You know what I'm saying? Especially the fact that you were saying earlier, you know, how hard it is making money and so forth. I know one of the biggest advice I always give actors, like several things, but one of the biggest things I tell them is like, one, like, don't be afraid to do extra work. Don't be afraid to jump on set. Don't be afraid to, you need to be around it, 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 be around it. The more you're around people, the more you're in it, the more you're doing it, the more you're going to meet people. Your network is your net worth. Like all that stuff is everything when it comes to acting and being in it and so forth, because it can get grueling, man. I've known actors, I've been in situations on sets and everything, and even casting situations where, like, I remember what movie was that? Oh, I forget the movie, but like it was one we shot in Philly, but it was a big movie, and with Jamie Foxx. Oh, help me out, Jamie Foxx and 300. Help me.
Oh, jeez.
Star. What's his name? Australian. Gerard Butler. Yeah. We shot it in Philly. It was a whole thing. The film came out okay, and it was still a pretty good film, but like it was a whole drama behind it. Jamie Foxx got robbed in Philly.
Oh, geez.
It was bad. He was super cool though, yo. Like we went and played basketball. Like he was super cool dude.
Law-abiding citizen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay.
Showing my age right there. But so we were working on the set for that, and a couple auditions for some of the main parts and so forth, right? I'll never forget seeing where they had the people coming in, right? And like the first couple of days, it'd be a variety of people. Then the next couple of days, it'd be like everyone starts to kind of look the same. Everyone's like, you have the same hair, you have the same look, you got the same freckles. And before you know it, you sit there like everyone looks the same. He's like, how the fuck am I gonna get this part? And like, yeah, it's real.
There's definitely reasons behind that. And part of it is because at the beginning of my journey, after I graduated from college with my degree, I immediately went to work for a production, boutique commercial production studio for a year and a half. And so at that, even though it was commercial, I still at that studio got to be on the casting side of things temporarily. And that benefited me in my career so much because from that point forward, I understood that it is not personal at all. I mean, yes, you're being judged on your performance, especially with film, but the commercial market is a completely different thing. But even with film, if you don't get a role, it could be because your performance was bad, but not necessarily. It could be a stupid reason, like we already cast your son and he has this skin tone and this hair color, so we need parents that look like they could have produced that child,
right?
Or something like that. I've been in situations like that, but reverse, where I was casted and then they had to cast my children, and they had to cast actors and actresses that looked like me and the dad could have had. But from there, just to talk about my journey, I did that for a year and a half. And then the advice that he just gave to young actors, that is exactly correct. That is exactly what I did. And that is exactly what I tell anyone getting into the business to do, is just be on set. So when I decided, you know, after a year and a half, I was like, okay, this is great, but acting is my passion and that I need to just do it 100%, not in my free time, or it'll never work. I quit there and I just went full steam ahead and never looked back. And the very first thing I did was I was an extra on a film set. It was what was it? Abduction with Taylor Lautner. I spent a whole summer just as an extra, and I was that weirdo that was just behind the director, like looking at
Just
everything.
looking.
And, like when it was appropriate,
What's this over
I would
here?
ask questions. What does that do?
What's
Can
this
you
over
show
here?
me? Yeah, and just getting an understanding of how a set works is like, honestly, this is my opinion. It's not right for everybody, but if I could take back the 5 years of college that I had, I would.
And just go to just do
I
that.
was 5 years on a set. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I was just saying, John, because your advice was exactly correct.
Sorry, my dog.
No. Just getting set experience. And it opened so many doors that wouldn't have opened for me otherwise, because I did that, I found myself in a situation where I actually was presented with an opportunity to be stunt double for Rachel McAdams, because I met the right people on set as an extra, and I had certain physical abilities on my resume. And so I went and I auditioned for that, and I got it because I had the right skill set, and they could see my professionalism from my resume and everything. And we have she and I have the exact same like measurements and skin tone and at the time hair color and everything. So it was just a really good match. And I ended up being her stunt double, and I did a few projects for Vanessa Shaw as well for 2 years. And so, that's 3 years before I'm even acting, really, where I'm just on set. But as a stunt double, that experience was invaluable because I was seeing and hearing and just absorbing everything. And also, as an extra, you're kind of like an audience member just watching the show, and you can get what you get from it. But as a stunt double, you're really like in it, and you're learning everything. And unfortunately, after a couple years of that, I had to sit down with her and say, I'm sorry, I want to keep doing this, because she brought me on for 3 projects because we just worked so well together. I was like, but I need to focus on acting.
Did you have any stunt background or previous experience?
I had a lot of like physical abilities. Like I was certified in scuba diving, martial arts, dance, cheerleading, like a whole list of things, kickboxing, stuff like that. So, and then I ended up going and getting certified when I got that job. So now I can do like wire stunts and crash a car safely and falls hard.
That's very interesting and funny. That's kind of how I got my start in a really weird
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was I'm way different backwards, but like so my mentor, I did martial arts and fighting and all that stuff since I was a kid. And I did a little professional fighting. And long story short, kind of ended up bumping into a friend of a friend and person who ended up being one of the top Black stuntmen and coordinators in the world, choreographers, Robert Jefferson. Shout out to Bobby Samuels, to this day, still doing his thing. And this is back in the day. This is like early 2000s. This is like when Jackie and them was first coming back onto the scene, and Jet Li and all that kind of stuff. But Rob and Bobby, like, they were already over in Hong Kong working. They were doing stunts and stuff over there, and all the the kung fu stuff. So we learned from them and grew from that. And then he kind of came back over before Jackie and them came over. So he jumped onto more like commercials and music videos and stuff, because the hip hop guys were all into that stuff. So he was shooting a lot of like music videos and stunts and stuff and all this weird stuff. And we were jumping on with them here and there while I was like high school going into college. And that was my first introduction to being on like a major set to an extent. And it was like, ooh, what's that? Why y'all do that? Has that? And why is there a kiddie pool here? And why are you reflecting the light off of the thing there? I don't understand it. So from there I just kind of
like no other.
Yeah, and so I kind of caught the bug and you know, I'm like 17 years old, and you know, I'm around rappers and, and crazy stuff. First music video I ever worked on, it was Most Def, Talib Kweli, who else was in that video? High Tech was there. Funny enough. Somebody else. It was the girl from Belly. Remember the movie Belly?
Oh yeah,
DMX and Nas. I can't remember.
Hype Williams.
So yeah, and so they were shooting some kind of music video. They hired us to be like stunt performers, and I had to like do like a twist, backflip, tuck, whatever, and fall into a table. Keep in mind, I'm 17 years old. I've done the flip a bunch of times. I've never crashed into a table. And they were like, all right, John, you got this. I was like, hold on, wait a second. I didn't sign any insurance papers.
Always sign those papers. It's funny. I want to say ironic, but it's not, because it's completely meant to be. I know now. But, what everything I considered a delay at the time into what I really wanted to be doing has made me able to be top of my game as an actor now. So now, because I have credited stunt experience, I can do my own stunts on set. I did it for the pilot project. I had to learn German longsword. I did all these sword fighting scenes and wire stunts. And then my character in Unsinkable, I can't give spoilers, but let's just say there's a scene where I have to punch through glass. Oh, wow. And they didn't have to hire a stunt performer. I actually got to do the punching through the sugar glass and everything because I knew how to do it already. And so that's a lot of fun and really rewarding too, because production loves it because they don't have to hire someone else and they can actually get shots of my face and stuff, and they don't have to pretend. Yeah. Have the back and then the front, the back and the front.
Yeah. So do they I'm sorry. Oh, I was gonna say darn, I forgot my question. I was tell me about, you know, like that training process, because that's really interesting. So do they, when you have to do something like learn German longsword, is that something you do on your own time, or do they kind of go through the process of training you for that, or how does that work?
It's both. So when I book a project that requires a physical skill set like that pilot, for example, because of my background, they knew I could do it. But then once I booked the role, they then set me up with a trainer and a swordsman coach, and I had to go to practice like 3 times a week. But then in the interim, I have to practice on my own, or I won't be able to do the things that they're expecting me to do. So it's a lot of both.
Did Josh help you out? Praise?
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely did, because he knew a lot about that. Yeah. And it's awesome. Funny how many like experts I know in my life about certain skills. Like when I booked the Unsinkable role, I have a childhood friend who was just weirdly randomly obsessed with the Titanic. Like she would know when the Titanic sank, and every year she would wear red, white, and black to school because that was the color of the ship. Like she was so obsessed, and she knew every little detail.
That's so
when I
booked
that, so random. I know there are a lot of people obsessed with the Titanic, even though it's a tragedy. But when I booked that role, she was like my first call, because I asked her all of these details. You know, I had done as much research as I could, but I really wanted to know what she knew about. I told her, like, okay, my character is this class on the ship. This is what I know about her. This is her background. Where do you think she came from? What type of accent do you think she has? Like little things that I would have to figure out on my own, that I always phone a friend to try and get some insight, because you can't really figure that stuff out by yourself. You need help.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So it's good to know lots of different types of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say, kind of going back to the stunt part, is that one thing people don't realize is like the actors and everyone else and whoever's on set and everything else, and it's all, this is cool and everything else, but the real shine is the stunt artist.
Yeah.
So once like a crazy stunt goes down, everybody stops what they're doing. Everybody's just like,
I loved during the pandemic when that that's stunt person viral video happened.
Oh yeah, where everybody was doing the stunt. And they were
and then it was a bunch of like A-list actors and their stunt doubles, and they did the thing where they would do a stunt and pass it on to the next, or act like they punched the camera, and then someone else would take it. And I love it highlighted. There's so many different roles within film that I feel like didn't get their due.
Don't get the shine.
The pandemic. Somehow, like intimacy coordinator is another one. Nobody knew what the hell an intimacy coordinator was until Bridgerton came out, and everyone's like,
"What?
How did this work?" And then now that role, like that, the intimacy coordinator from that show now goes and does news interviews, and it's like a job that every film now requires when there's any type of intimacy between the actors. Like it's like a required position. So a lot of jobs weirdly got a spotlight that they should have got a long time ago.
So intimacy coordinators weren't a thing, or like weren't necessary on every set before when there's going to be that type of part?
It's not like a legal requirement, but it's something that now that everyone's aware that it exists and the benefits of it and how safe and comfortable it makes actors feel, actors now demand it, because it's something that they shouldn't have to figure out on their own. And
that's interesting.
I'm sure I don't need to tell either of you that there's been a lot of controversy on film sets around
100%. Yeah.
We can go in that for days. It's
another level of protection.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I'd never even heard of that before. So that is really interesting.
That's exactly my point. It's like a recent, I would say in the past year, this job has been spotlit. And now any audition I have that would require something like that there's a person there to call if needed. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's so many unsung heroes when it comes to a film. It's insane. I mean, just look at the credits. Like, I thank God for Marvel at least making people interested to stay and watch all the credits to whatever thing is going to happen. And people start, and I've had certain people I've been with who just realized, it was like, it takes a lot of people to make a movie, man. I was like, no shit, right?
Yeah.
Or they just start to see, especially just like all the interesting different categories that goes into it. Like one of the biggest ones I always say right off the bat, they get announced in the Oscars, but it's not in the main Oscars. It's always like in the back thing and so forth, like the gaffers and everybody in charge of lighting, and these are the most important things that make a movie look like what it looks.
You know how hard it is to put the boom mic out of the shot, but it's possible.
Right.
It's like the boom mic is always right here.
Really, yeah. It's right so close. Like
lighting.
Mine is usually like right here. I could touch it. Like there it is.
Right.
And especially sound. The sound, like people don't realize how everything. Like it'll make your movie from looking like super high budget to trash, low end, whatever B movie, whatever.
One job that I've really, really learned to appreciate is hair and makeup, because
that too.
There are a lot of sets I've been on. It's a very male dominated industry. And so, especially with indie projects, when there's not a single female on the crew, there's no one to let them know that hair and makeup matters. And no, every girl cannot just make themselves look like what you want them to look like. It's not a thing. But a lot of male directors and producers think that
it's an afterthought for them because they're not thinking.
Yeah, or they just bring on their sister or whoever and be like, do it. And there have actually been projects that I won't show anybody that every single other part of it was immaculate, but
the makeup wasn't right.
I looked like I was going to the club instead of in my house in my PJs. Like, it matters.
You need all that.
It matters. And makeup for the camera is way different than just everyday makeup too. It's a specialty, and they absolutely deserve top pay for what they do because it's hard.
No, it is. getting it to look right, getting, being able to put on makeup and make it look natural, and cover
Mhm.
up what needs to be covered up, and highlight what needs to be there. Highlight, like, it's a huge skill, and it's
Yeah,
really it's not easy.
that
And
doesn't
you
even
know,
get into prosthetics and things like that,
yeah,
like
no,
SFX makeup.
especially, yeah, that's just a whole another thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
And we talk about that with photography a lot. We've had
Oh,
a couple
sure.
of makeup artists on, and it's a thing, that just little stuff like don't have SPF in your makeup,
Yeah.
so it doesn't shine into doesn't reflect light.
I ain't know nothing about none of that.
Has
Yeah.
never thought like that crossed my mind until we had a makeup artist
There's a
tell us.
reason that they go to school for what they do,
Yep.
Yeah,
and they should be valued just as much as everybody else on the set.
100%,
Yeah,
100%. Let's see.
it's crazy.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah,
You
go,
first.
go ahead. Go ahead. I forgot what I was going to say. I was trying to think of
Fight
something, so you're
over
good.
me.
So kind of I guess that's the best way I can. So kind of give us an idea of like, we try and make this as much a teaching thing as well
Mhm.
as just talking and so forth. And it was funny. I was talking to someone earlier today, and it was like, "Hey, man, I'm loving the show and everything else. I know you guys are just getting started and blah 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 blah. It's going to take a minute, but we like how you're from people talking and us going over everything and talking how we have been so far. We're showing the process
Yeah,
of what it is to do what we do and so
really
forth, and
valuable.
you can
Yeah.
learn a lot from that.
Right.
But if someone was like, well, what I'm kind of geared on, and I know what in the future we're going to get more of and everything else, is a lot of people starting off and wanting to know what are the first steps, what are the first things that they should do, what are some tips and tricks and things that they can use and do to help get into the industry, help get into what they're trying to do, and so forth. There are a lot of young ladies who want to be actresses and so forth. What are some of the main things you would tell them if we had to break down like maybe 3, 4, or 5? What would be the first things you would tell them? These are the things you should do, need to, that would get you ahead of the pack and things like that.
That is a really good question. I would say the very first thing that you should do is get professional headshots, because I have seen actors with 0 credits, no reel, book a role because they had a professional headshot, because that is the first thing in the casting process. That is the first thing that gets submitted, is just a headshot. And do you want to see something from this person, whether it's through an agency or yourself? It's just a headshot. And that is something that down the line you absolutely should pay what the photographer and makeup artist and everybody are worth paying.
Right.
But if you're just starting out, then my advice is to maybe find a photographer who's also doing the same thing, trying to build their portfolio, and just collaborate. Say, hey, I need headshots. You need photos. Can we work together and get your first headshots? Just something to put out there. But that is the very first thing that casting director will see. And if it's a selfie on your phone, they're not going to take you seriously. You probably won't even get any opportunities to show that you have any talent at all. So that would be the first thing that I would say. The second thing would be, if you find yourself not able to get any opportunities through projects that already exist, go film something yourself. I know plenty of actors that are starting out that have nothing to show, and I always tell them, just go sit in front of a blank wall, make sure that your lighting is good, make sure you can hear yourself clearly, use a good like phone if you have it, or a camera if you have it, or ask a friend to help, and just work on a monologue and film your monologue. And at least then do 3 or 4 different pieces that show a range of what you can do. It doesn't matter if I still, after 10 years, sometimes depending on the project, I will submit a self-taped monologue over a high budget professional film that I did, because that monologue is specifically showing that I can do the role that they're asking for. They don't care where the footage comes from. They just want to see what you can do, and they want to see that it'll look good. I guess a third thing would be, if you're just starting out, you obviously have no representation or anything. So the first thing that I did was sign up for Backstage, which if you're familiar with Backstage magazine, which was like the original actors magazine, that started way back, I think in the 80s. It was just an informative source. It used to be printed, but now it's a website, and they do a digital magazine too. But it's a casting platform, and it's free. It's absolutely free. And the types of projects on there are for beginners. It's union and non-union, which if you're just starting out, you're going to be non-union. And it's everything from voiceover to commercial to film to video games, just anything you can imagine, photo shoots, print jobs. Go on there, create a profile, and upload a couple things that you have. And that's a really good way to start out without any representation, to build your reel. My experience with it was that eventually I reached a plateau with that platform. I got representation, and then they were getting me the jobs that were like the next tier up from Backstage. But it's a really, really good resource for beginners.
So did they connect you with like an agent or something like that, through Backstage? Is that how that
Sometimes
works?
Yeah, agents can go on there and post, we're now accepting new talent, and then you can, just like an audition, you can submit yourself, and if they're interested. Actually, that's how I got my first agent.
Okay.
You just reminded me. I've had a lot of agents. That was my first one. My commercial agent I got it through Backstage. They did that. They submitted we're accepting new talent, and then I submitted myself, and they reached out, and we set up like an online audition thing, and then I got representation that way. So yeah, it's building blocks.
So speaking of agents, what's been your experience with that?
Before we segue, I just want to ask one quick question, just as just to build on something. So for monologues, where do you find monologues for your self tapes?
The old school way is to go get a book. They have like books of monologues. I don't know if people use paper anymore, but I use a lot of paper still. Because those are good resources, because everyone else is going to go online and look for monologues, but they do sell books that are like female monologues, male monologues, dramatic monologues, comedic, under 1 minute, under 2 minutes. Like they have different categories. That's a really good resource. But I mean, online is good too, but I would say the feedback that I have always heard from the casting side of things is they tend to get a lot of repeats. And so if it's like the 10th person that they've seen that did the same monologue, they're just so exhausted and over it that they probably won't even watch it, because they're a human being and they're fucking sick bored of it. They don't want to hear it again. Yeah. Doesn't matter how good you are. So really my main advice is just try and pick something unique, which the best way to do that is just watch a lot of TV and movies, I have a note in my phone, and every time I watch something and a monologue happens and I'm like, oh my God, that's an amazing monologue, I will write down the show name, the episode, the character, the time marker. And so next time I have to do a monologue, I'll go back and watch them and pick one. Yeah.
Very cool.
Those have never been, I've never heard that those are repeated because they're so random.
Right.
I can't Google search for it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. What were you asking, John?
I forgot what I was going.
Well, you were asking about agents.
Agents and your experience with agents.
That's a really good question too. I am probably the only person that's going to answer this way, but I've had a very unique experience with agencies. Like I said, I've been through a lot of agents, and the reason for that, I don't know if it's me or if this is generally the case, but the reason I get through a lot of agents is because I will sign with an agency and then I will do more than they will. Like I said, I don't know if I'm just, I'm very type A perfectionist. I go get what I want. I am a workaholic. I will admit that because I love what I do, but I'm out there scouring for work just, a lot of times more than they are. And I also am really good with keeping relationships with directors and people that I've worked with before, to the point where there are a couple of casting offices that they'll actually just text me because they have my personal number and invite me straight to a callback. They won't even put me through the audition process because they know what I can do, because we have that type of relationship. Where I'm from, Pittsburgh, I have no agency. And that is because what I just described to you, that is the situation that I have there. There's no point in me having an agent because I'm already getting invited straight from the source. I have an agent in Los Angeles, and I have a Midwestern agent, specifically because a project came up that I was good for. I ended up booking. It's the Movers Ultimate feature film that I told you about.
Okay.
But that's in the Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana region. And I was happy to sign with them, even though they only throw me things every once in a while, because that's a market that I'm just not in at all. I don't know anybody. I don't have any strings to pull. And so the only work I'm getting there is from them. But my opinion on agents actually over time has changed, because a lot of people in this industry they're under the impression, because they're told that you're not going to get anywhere without having a good agent. But it's such a catch-22, because agents are only interested in signing people that have already done really great things for themselves already. Oh, wow. So it's like a weird limbo to exist in. And I have done very, very well for myself without an agent. My agent in LA is strictly commercial. I get my own film projects over there, because I've just learned how to do it on my own. And I'm looking at the breakdowns every single day, whereas agents might look at them once a week and send you a few things, but you're just a number to them. So I'm kind of holding out, honestly. I've had meetings with CAA and a couple of big agencies. If it's somebody like that, I'll definitely sign. But up until that point, I'm happy with my situation that I have now.
Nice. How do you what's the difference between a good agent and maybe the agent's not good? How do you pick a good agent?
I think it depends on. That's a very individual question.
Okay.
For me, I have dropped 2 agencies for moral reasons. One of them was sending me projects that politically and morally I did not agree with. And so we butted heads on that. And I didn't want to be associated with them whatsoever, or the work that they were choosing to accept for a paycheck. And then the other one, it was just, personally, we didn't mesh. I think your agent, you really need to, it's not just a business relationship. It's also a personal relationship. They have to really care about you, and you have to be very clear about what you want, and they have to be willing to try and find you the work that means a lot to you, because there are a lot of agents out there that it's just all about money for them. And for there might be actors that it's all about money for them too. I disagree with that. That's not why I do this. I think it's a craft, and it needs to be respected as such. And I don't care if you're paying me 10 cents a day. If it's a role that really means a lot to me, I will take it. But certain agents won't even accept those jobs because it won't make them any money. Yeah. And that's another thing, actually, in the advice column for actors just starting out, is that like I said, we tend to think of agents as like this holy grail, this thing, this goal that we have to achieve. But from a business standpoint, when you go to an audition, you always fill out a sign-in sheet. You put your name, your union number, your contact info, and then whether you have an agent or not. My recipe for success in like the midsection of my career was being able to fill out that sheet and say, yes, I'm SAG-AFTRA. No, I don't have an agent. And the reason for that, the reason that was so powerful and valuable is because everyone else on there that, is union and has an agency, when the casting director looks at that sheet, they
more
see
hassle.
dollar signs. Yeah, they see, okay, if we book this person, they're
gotta
union
work with
already. If you're non-union, it's kind of like a little bit of a disadvantage, because if it's a union project and you're non-union, they know even if you're good for the role, we have to pay for you to get into the union.
Yeah.
They had to get you in the
union.
See,
but,
Paul, sorry. Paul's right there, because remember the other actor we had on before? Remember I was saying, like, you can pay to be in union. And you were like, yes, you can.
Interesting.
Yeah. But if you're, like I said, the holy grail for me was union, no agent, because the casting director looks at that and sees they're union already, don't have to pay for them to get into the union, but they also have no agent. So if they're good enough if they fit the role and they're talented enough, we also don't have to pay an extra 10, 15, 20% to an agent.
Right.
So I was booking a lot in that section of my career, because for them it was like, I went in and I wowed them, and also I'm the cheapest from their perspective. I still get paid the same. My fee is my fee, but for them it's cheaper because they don't have to pay more to an agency.
So do you have to negotiate every project, or is there like a list of fees that they pay for projects?
When you're a union actor, the union determines that rate for you. Gotcha. So that was why being in SAG-AFTRA was so important to me. The second that I was eligible to join, I joined, because they just protect you financially. They protect you in so many ways, and they've just been so good to me. I really recommend joining SAG-AFTRA if you're eligible.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So what?
This is a great picture to post.
we're literally just putting up random stuff.
That's a horror called Cryptids. And funny enough, I might look a little younger in that picture, because that's from like 6 years ago, and it still hasn't come out yet.
Oh, wow. I feel like the name Cryptids sounds familiar. Maybe you told me about it, but I feel like
it's been in the news a couple times. It was a Pittsburgh film.
That's probably why.
Actually.
That's from Unsinkable?
Yeah, this past October. I wrapped in October.
Nice.
That was from that.
So what would you say, what advice would you give to, like, once again, a young budding actress who is, going into an audition and so forth? They're super nervous and so forth. What would be like some good advice to, tips and tricks to help them kind of get ahead, or so
I love
forth?
this one. They can't do what you can do. All those people, all those eyes that are sitting there staring at you, expecting you to just dance, monkey, perform for me, they can't do a lick of what you can do. And that's why they're there, to find someone who can. If they could do what you could do, they wouldn't need to find you. That is the thing that I always tell myself before walking into any audition room, is that just by getting up there and performing, I'm impressing them, because people choose to be in front of the camera or behind the camera for a reason, and all behind the camera people. And it really, honestly, that, people have different tricks. Like the old picture them in their underwear one is probably the most classic, but like that is the thing I always tell myself. And also the other thing is that having butterflies is a good thing. I don't think of it as a bad thing, because if I didn't have butterflies, then why the hell am I doing this? If it doesn't excite me or make me nervous, if I don't have jitters before getting up there and performing, then I don't know. To me, it's not worth it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll add a little to that for being on the other side of the plate, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
on more than one occasions. This is the best thing I can say is that directors do have a vision and an idea, producers, whoever, writers, the whoever's involved in creating the project. A lot of times they do have a vision of what they want, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they as much as they have the vision, they still don't kind of know. They can change their minds, and two, they still don't kind of know, because it's like, this is what I'm looking for, but I'm also looking for someone to almost wow me / change my mind. You know what I mean? So I always kind of tell people, like, you need to look at it like every other creative job, right? So me and Rob know this very well, as far as, like, most clients have no clue what they want.
Nope.
They just know they want something that either competes with what they're doing, right? Or sells whatever they're doing, or somehow whatever to further whatever they're fucking trying to do, whatever that may be, right? It's no different with directors, producers, writers, all the above, whoever's casting directors. Well, first of all, the casting directors is just going off with nonsense other than the producer and the director.
They're a middle. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that, actually.
Sometimes they try and pull
directors
for
are
what they want.
campaigning to be included as a category in the Oscars, because what they do is so hard. Their job is to try, like you said, a lot of the people making the film, I shouldn't say they don't know what they want. I should say they think they know what they want.
They have an idea.
If you watch a lot of stories about how actors got casted in roles that blew up, it's a lot of them are like, we hadn't found our whoever, and then this person walked in the room and we were like, that's them. I just knew it. It was them. And it might not have been what was on paper exactly, but they walked in and we just knew. And that, like you just said, I've actually gone out for roles where maybe it wasn't like an age or a type or some, like, on paper, I shouldn't have submitted for it. But then I walked into the room and I did it a different way. And I've been a couple of times, I've booked a role and they just changed the character to me because they liked what I did more than what they thought they wanted. They just hadn't seen it yet. So it's not that they don't have an imagination or anything like that. It's that until an actor is cast in a role, it only exists as text on a piece of paper. Like, there's no physical embodiment. Until that physical embodiment shows itself, and then it might not be what they pictured. Just like we all might fall in love with someone that wasn't like, we all have a checklist, and then we meet the person and it's like, you throw the
that's
checklist.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Very
Charlie
true,
Brown. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I realize that's how you get Captain Jack Sparrow. That's how you get Iron Man. That's how you get a lot of different things. So one thing I would tell actors, and just a word of advice from what I've experienced, is that try everything you can to get as much information about the character, film, so forth beforehand. I know everybody says they do that, but I see a lot of actors that they get whatever they get. Hey, here's your lines, here's whatever. They go, okay, yeah, and then and like, don't be afraid to be like, okay, cool, here's the lines. Cool. What's the synopsis of the movie? What's this? What's that? Is there any way I can see more of the script? And sometimes they're going to tell you no. That's okay, but don't be afraid to put yourself, like, to say that and kind of get a little bit more
information,
because that's going to help you formulate a little better of what you're creating.
I actually have a funny story about that. For Unsinkable, which was still to this date the most grueling, most lengthy audition process I've ever been through. To their credit, impeccable casting. Of course, I have to say that because I got it. But that audition process, casting can go anything from, we're going to book off of headshots and demo reels to, we can do as many callbacks as we damn well please until we find the person we want. And Unsinkable happened to be one of those experiences where you mentioned going to auditions, and as people would come in, it would get more and more specific and be less and less people. That was an experience where it was basically a cattle call at the first one. And that was the initial audition. I had 5 callbacks for my role. And every single time I showed up, It'd be less and less people to the point where my last one was me and one other girl. And the very first thing that I did when I got that role was ask for as much information as possible, like you said. But I did my research. I knew on paper it said that my character was a mother and that she was in the steerage class of the ship. And like I said before, I called my friend. I found out what steerage meant. I found out that it was the poorest of the poor. It would have been the lowest level deck, the last people, if at all, to get off of the boat when it was going down.
Yeah.
And I found out what countries they would have come from, just all this information. And so I actually haven't shared this story with anyone yet. And I don't know who she is. So I hope she's not watching. But the last audition, the last callback that I had, I walked in the room and in the waiting room, and there was only one other girl in there. And I was like, okay, this is the last one. Like, they're deciding between two of us. But we clearly had interpreted the character so differently. And it was obvious that I had done research and she hadn't, because when I walked in, I knew that I was going to have to be very physical in this audition, like crawling around like I was in water type of thing on the floor. So I just wore leggings, and I wore this like cream colored tattered up shirt because it was like poor looking, like rags. And I wore old riding boots like they would have had back in the day, and no makeup, hair, just blah, everything, because I'm in water, Right. I walk in and she's dressed like in the full, like the first class attire, where it looked like she went out and got some vintage costume with the heels and the tights and the full bodice and skirt, red lipstick, makeup, her hair up in this thing with this hat and these gloves. And I just remember looking at her like, that can't be for the same role as me. Like, that's not steerage. Steerage is the poorest of the poor. You never would dress like that. And then when I found, they called me back first, and then they called her. I was like, oh, it is between her and I. And not that it had anything to do with her performance, I don't know, but I booked the role and she didn't. And I was just like,
they saw exactly what they were looking for.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it might have just been as simple as I clearly cared enough to Google.
Right.
You never know.
It's just like, because I see so much put on, like, I got the role and it was this mystical thing that happened, and it's like, it's not that deep. It's like a lot of times it's like the director just like, I'm just looking for this. If I get at least close to this, I'm good.
Yeah.
And it's like, funny story. So a friend of a well, no, he was a client more than anything else, I should say. And he was being auditioned and test rolled for Dark Knight.
Okay.
And for Joker. And they were specifically looking for a redhead back then. And he got tested, call back, and all of a sudden it becomes redhead, and everybody more and more looking like the part. And then out of nowhere, they're like, hey, thanks for everything. We appreciate you guys. We'll get back to you. I don't think we're going to need you. Goodbye. And then Heath Ledger shows up.
Yeah.
Totally different from everything they was looking for.
Oh,
like,
dude.
what the F? I don't get it, man. And I was like,
sometimes it is the opposite like that.
Just,
like they just want a specific physical type.
Well, that Heath Ledger,
like,
the character that Heath Ledger created for the Joker was.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, they were specific on something until Heath Ledger showed.
Yeah, they had no idea they wanted that.
Totally different. He was like, "Yep, that ain't even
that's it.
Thought we needed."
Actually,
that's not even Joker. I don't care. We want that.
Yeah, I actually got through 3 rounds of auditions for Rey for Star Wars, and at the time, I was still stunt doubling for Rachel, and she was playing this role where she had to have this really crazy hair. And so even though she got to wear a wig, I'm the stunt double. They actually dyed my hair this crazy color. And so they were very specifically looking for a brunette for that role. And I showed up to all 3 auditions with this crazy hair. And I'm like, I promise I look like this normally. Like right now, I'm just on this project. And after 3 auditions, they were just, it didn't, I didn't get a 4th. And looking back, I'm like, I wonder if it was because of my hair.
No, that's interesting too, because I remember, and this is a tip for photographers, especially people who do headshots, or even if you do self tapes. I remember you telling me this is they don't really, these people aren't very good at imagining what you would look like if.
Yeah.
So it's good for you to actually do different looks and, you know, doing hair up, hair down, you know, if you have a blonde or a brunette, you know, those type of things are good to have because they can't just imagine you. You know, I can't, they don't look at this picture and say, I wonder what she would look like blonde. They can't imagine that.
I actually, I created a self-tape studio for myself because it's my job. So it's like my actor's office. And I have a wardrobe rack of clothes that are just for auditions. They're not for my real life. And I have like wigs and clip-on bangs and extensions and, you know, just like all these crazy things so that I will go all out for a self-tape. And it works because the more that you can show them what it's really going to look like, the easier it is for them to imagine. And that's a big reason why out in LA we have self-tape studios that that is what it is. You book them to film your self-tape for you and they make it look like you're in the movie already.
And that's what I want to build here. Yep.
Yeah, I was telling Rob, I was like, LA is a whole different beast, though.
It is.
You go out there, they got studios for everything.
Oh,
and like dirt cheap. Like it'd be like $45-$50 to
when
book
I'm in LA, I always
a set that looks like the Star Trek Enterprise. And you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Like I shot, I can't even tell you. The last time I was there, the last music video I shot was all like outside. But the one before that, we shot for I forget what's her name, Luna Del Moon or something like that. She's called a rapper, female, pop, whatever. You know, it's all mixed up these days. And we shot nothing but studios, and I think the most we spent for a studio was like $70. Jeez. And we shot in the most like exaggerated whatever. They were small, but like they were so cool and like so precise on what we wanted and needed. It was crazy,
dude. I want to build something.
And we jumped. I want to tell you, we jumped from studio to studio. We jumped like we shot like 13 studios.
Jeez,
wow,
like, it was wild.
In
the course of like 3 days, it was wild. Yeah. And that's what I started implementing here in Philly. And like we just like I own now 3 studios, and we're building a bunch of stuff. Like, and that's what we're doing now is building a lot of different studio themes and so forth. Because like what's going on now is you have this weird situation where it's very cheap and easy to get the cameras. Right. Yeah, Elliot was out with me. He got to see it himself. It's very easy to build. I mean, it's very easy to get the equipment. It's very easy now to get the things necessary to make a project. It's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. The technology is getting better and better. But you still necessarily can't afford the manpower, the whatever, to build a set and to build whatever. So if you can accommodate that, there's money to be made. And I'm very much starting to see that, especially in cities that are not known for it, but you have a lot of people who wanting to do this and get into this and build something in their area.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, as a photographer looking for space or looking for a good studio here in Pittsburgh, it's tough to find anything good. So it's something that's necessary. Hopefully, you know, I'll be able to deliver that at some point, but that's a thing. It's definitely
all over.
Isn't like fully a film town just yet.
They're trying to.
Yeah,
like they're really trying to.
I get a lot of like side comments from people in my life about, you know, there have to be so many opportunities for you back home in Pittsburgh, and I have to explain to them the reason that comes and films in Pittsburgh is because Pennsylvania has an insanely good tax credit that we all fought for to make it affordable for them. But those productions, those Netflix productions and stuff, they're not doing their casting there. They're bringing their casting from New York and LA and Atlanta to this random town of Pittsburgh, and then they'll cast like extras there.
Yep.
You know, what I'm trying to tell people and get more people into, including myself, is the more fact that, like, once again, just you got to go with the times. You got to keep, you know, changing and evolving with what's going on. And what's going on right now is like, you don't need a huge set. You don't need all the crazy stuff that you used to need back in the day. Sometimes you do, but a lot of times in certain projects, like, you can make it work with a lot more smaller these days because of the technology and the advancement in cameras. So if you can provide that on different levels, you'd be surprised. You know what I'm saying? Like, right now we're shopping airplane hangars. Yeah, like right now we're shopping airplane hangars in Delaware, and for dirt cheap, because what's going on now is like a lot of the airlines are closing because of various things, COVID, whatever, and so forth. So they're giving up their airplane hangars and stuff for super cheap, for rentals and all this other stuff. So we're buying into that now and starting to invest in some stuff. I'm not going to get into it, but Elliot Lopez says, yup, when I worked on a show here in NY, we filmed in New Jersey, but the actors never were from New Jersey.
Fun fact, because my fiance and I are kind of bi-coastal. We have a place in Pasadena, and then we have a place in Pittsburgh where we're both from too. The month that we like moved out there, I got, from my agent out there, I got an audition for a project that filmed back in Pennsylvania.
Isn't that funny?
But that project they weren't considering actors from Pennsylvania.
That's wild.
And they didn't even know that that was where I came from until I showed up on set. They flew me back. They paid to fly me back. They could have saved so much money
if you were just
already there. They just, unfortunately, it's something that I see shifting now, but unfortunately, it's a stigma. I think
don't see the talent pool
for actors is they don't take you seriously unless you're willing to up and move your ass to these headquarter locations. However, I think from 2020 to now, we have seen a major shift in that, where because casting was forced to go online, they now are aware that there's talent everywhere. And that also,
social media,
not everybody that moves to LA
getting out of the bubble
necessarily good.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Just because they live there doesn't mean that they're good. Yeah. That's facts.
Exactly.
And it seems as though, you know, they should be eventually catching on to TikTok and, you know, people doing reels and stuff like that, and just being able to, these creators that are talented people that, you know, live in BFE, and, you know, you just don't know because they're not in the meccas.
There were a couple of monologue competitions that I entered at during the beginning of 2020 when everything was shut down, just to kind of like stay relevant and just be seen. And I ended up winning one of them, and it led to a project because of that. But it was one of those things where it didn't matter where you were, it didn't matter where you were in your career, anybody could enter. And because everybody was just kind of desperate and like scrapping for something to do during that time to stay creative and be seen.
I want to get a little into that, and the fact that once again, same with even just how you get paid, and some of the money situations are changing a lot because of just pandemic, streaming, and everything else. Because I'm jumping on a couple of projects now with some directors and so forth that I wouldn't necessarily have jumped on before, just because of how things are changing, where we're getting into situations where I'm jumping on projects for like DP and so forth, where I'm not getting paid as much up front, but because of the back end deals that they're making in streaming and so forth, it's more money, actually more on the table down the road. And so
like
I'm
getting paid an equity type of deal, or
so it's like I'm taking less up front but more on the back end. And I'm starting to see that kind of more and more play out, especially with smaller independent projects and things like that. So I was just curious, some of your take on that, what you've experienced, especially with some of your own projects that you've worked on and so forth.
We actually might disagree with our approach to this, or at least prioritize differently, because the one thing that I always tell people that want to get into acting, I always say, if you are doing it for the money, just don't do it. Like, because for one, the chances of you becoming an A-list multi-million-dollar salary actor are very slim. It's not zero, but
like
you have to be willing to, like I said before, you have to be willing to lose money for a long time and then break even for just as long of a period of time before you even start to see anything in the positive range. So I am just personally of the opinion that I don't do this for the money. I do it for my love of the craft. And if fame and fortune happen to come from that, I mean,
so be it.
take it. Yeah, I'm not going to say no. But I just think that we live in a day and age, you talk about TikTok, where I feel like everybody wakes up every single day thinking, I want to be famous. And I don't know if you guys have watched the documentary on Netflix called Fake Famous, but you should watch it if you haven't seen it, because it really is an eye-opening documentary that shows you how many people are out there that they think that they deserve fame and fortune just for existing.
Right.
Just because I'm me and I'm spectacular. And yes, you are spectacular, but that's not how the world works. And there's also no recipe for success in this industry. There's no, like, I can give you advice all day, but your journey is going to be different than
different
mine.
ways.
You can do everything. I have, like I said, I have actors that I mentor that they think that if they model their social media profiles exactly the same way I have, that they will achieve the level of success that I have. And I have to explain to them, like, social media, it's great because you can keep people informed, and you might be able to reach somebody that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. But for the most part, I don't care about social media. I'm too busy working on, giving the best performance I can give. And I work with an acting coach that I have to pay that acting coach every single time I book a project. Sometimes a project that would make me money, I still end up not making any money because I take my salary and I pay my acting coach to make me the best performer that I can be, because for me, it's more important that I give the best performance I can. So it's like an answer, but not an answer, because like I said, you still have to pay the bills. I know, I'm aware of that, but I think that we all have a responsibility just to determine our priorities. And if money is one of them, don't even try.
Yeah,
I try to be an actor, because you have to love it to get through the amount of days that you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, I haven't stayed on the acting side a whole long,
yeah.
so I can't speak a whole lot for that. I know a little bit about it, but what I'll say to this, anybody on any form of creative side that especially wants to get into films and Hollywood and all that kind of stuff, the best advice I always give is this, and I've even done this. I've literally done this in auditions. This is usually like small independent projects and like people that like brand new to whatever they're doing, or just getting started, whatever it may be. And I usually I always ask this question. I go, how much you really want to do this, and how much do you really want to be seen? Because there's a lot of people that just want to be seen, but they don't really care about doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's something I really had to get. I really had to get through my head throughout my career as well, because I used to be of the mindset where I would show up to maybe like a no budget independent short film and be like, I don't have to put a lot of effort into this. Like, no one's ever going to see it. But then when I'm on the big sets and the big projects, I would get so nervous and put all my effort into it. But what I realized later is that that shouldn't matter, for one, but for two, you never know who's watching at all. Those little projects could lead to things that those big projects won't. Or actually, the funny thing about it is those little projects, those student films, like my very first film that I ever acted in was a student film for Point Park University. And the director and writer of it, Eric Yeckley, I showed up and I gave it my all. And it was a student film. Like I didn't think anybody was ever going to see it, but I still gave it my all. It was my first ever film. It was a short film. He now works for Fox in Hollywood and is, I don't think I'm allowed to say what his new job is actually. Let's just say he's a big gun. Like he has an executive position at Fox now. I don't know if he's revealed his new job, so
You mean Disney?
Yeah. But so now I have a good friend and somebody that I've impressed in a powerful position.
Right.
And not that should matter either, but that's what
that's
course.
connections.
People remember you and they remember the impression you leave on them. And I've had a lot of people turn around and open doors for me that I opened doors for in the past.
Yeah. There's
your network is your net worth.
I was actually going to say exactly those words.
Exactly.
And to add on to that as well, you know, people think that, you know, oh, if it's not something that's big, I'm going to perform this way, but when I get to the big thing, I'm going to perform better. That's not always true. A lot of times the way you perform
that ain't
is the
true
way
at
you,
all.
right. The way you perform is the way you practice. So if you practice doing a poor job, then when you get to the big thing, you may not perform as well as you think you're going to because you haven't practiced performing well.
It's no different than people thinking when they get a lot of money, all of a sudden they're going to be responsible with money, or if they get a lot of money, they're going to be somehow a better person. No, it just exacerbates whatever you already are.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's no different with fame. It's no different with success. It's no different with anything else.
Yep.
And we're all, I mean, it's hard not to let those things get to you. Like I'm lucky enough to have my acting coach is John Markland. He runs the Markland studio in LA. And he is just, it's just like, he's just heaven sent because he says exactly what I need to hear all the time. And every time I have a coaching session with him, I'm guilty too of just recently I did a project where I come into the coaching session and I'm like, I know it's this tiny little project. However, the people involved are with this company and that company, and I can't really say, but like I would say these things and he immediately is like, stop, just throw all that out the window. That doesn't matter. Don't care about that because it will affect what you're able to do if that's what you care about. Is that you force me to mentally throw it away and just and that project in particular, actually, I prepared for an entire month and I already walked onto set as that character. I had been with her for a long time already. And another actor that I had to work with was still trying to learn his lines. Like it was two different approaches completely.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with that.
It helps to have people. I also think that something that we all probably struggle with as creatives, as artists, is the mentality of trying to do it all by yourself.
Yeah.
I did that for a long time, and I don't know why. I've always kind of been that way, but I think part of it was just not really wanting someone else's input or not wanting to, I guess, share. That's kind of a weird way of putting it, but there's such value in getting input from other people and working with other people on something that, you could do by yourself. But
I tell people
another set of eyes, they might see something that you could have never seen.
I tell people all the time, man, being on I mean, there's many jobs, many amazing things, but there's something very unique about being on a film set and being on a film set where everybody is engaged, interested, passionate about trying to achieve the same goal. We're all doing different stuff, but we all want to get to that same place and we all love what we're doing. And it's something about film with that. and the camaraderie and the people you meet and the friends you make and the things I have. I've never experienced that on any other kind of job, any other kind of
You
anything
become
I've ever
family
had. Very quickly.
Because most film working days are, they could
Long.
be 12, 14, 16 hours.
Yeah.
Weeks on end, days on end. And it's just so weird. You're around completely like-minded people. You're around people who have the same interests, same everything, can sit and talk with you about films and whatever for days on end. And it's just a camaraderie you don't to me, I've never experienced anywhere else. I'm sure there's other things like that people experience, but for me personally, like, I've never experienced it on any level that I have a film set.
I think it might
addictive.
Have something to do with what we were talking about earlier, where no matter what job you have in the film industry, it is tough to make a living doing it. So you have to really love what you do and love telling stories enough to do it. And so
embrace the suck.
Surrounded by people that love what they do that much, no matter, if you're at the end of a 16-hour day, yeah, everybody's complaining, but you're still showing up for a reason. You don't have to come back tomorrow, you do. So we all love it just as much. And it's magical, especially when you're like on location somewhere and you're all experiencing something new together and you're stuck together. And it's just like when you're a kid going camping.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. So last thing I'll say, and this is kind of wrapping it up, and I guess it's a good time to get a little controversial.
We're getting on there.
I guess it's a good time to get a little controversial about it. We run for 2 hours, so don't sweat it.
So we get running up on the 2 hour. Yep.
Yeah, and it always goes like, oh wow, we're at 2 hours. I didn't even know.
Yep.
So if you could tell us a little bit about just kind of where you see the film industry and everything as a whole and where it's going. We see all this controversial stuff, go woke and go broke, LGBTQ community, acceptance, adversity, all these interesting things happening. Some of it good, some of it bad. Marvel, superhero movies, IP, all this other stuff, a whole other kind of industry. Like, where do you see the film industry in a whole going? Where do you see things lining up in the next 3-5 years?
Oh, loaded question.
Look at that.
I'm a nerd. I see your Funko Pops back there. I have thousands, and I throw away the boxes because
I like to have them out.
Yeah, they're never getting sold. So as far as the whole MCU, DC cinematic universe, all that jazz, I know there's controversy, especially recently, where a lot of people and a lot of actors are coming out saying that like they're not real movies. They're not, I guess, the same level of art as something that would win at Sundance or win at Cannes or whatever. Really? I completely disagree with that. I think crazy. Oh, you didn't? Yeah. There's a conversation about that.
Tons of that going on.
It's interesting.
The actors
I personally disagree with that. I can see maybe how some actors would feel that way because they see those movies as just they're made for the box office.
Yeah, it's really formulaic, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add one thing to that. I hope I don't take you too far off from
no, it's okay.
Or digress. I think there's a whole bunch of hating, to be honest with you, and I think it's hating because it's changed the formula to how movies are financed and what makes a movie. Because what used to finance and make a movie was the A-list actor.
Mm-hmm.
You put your money into the actor first, and then you use that act. So for instance, let's say you're trying to make a movie, right? I'm trying to sum this up real quick, right? I learned this from an old school producer back in the day. I became a mentor a little bit, right? So the way it works is, let's say however you're going to get your money, you got your money, finance it from the bank, whatever you want to do, pull it from whatever, right? Let's say you got $1 million together, $500,000, whatever, right? You go pull whatever A-list actor, B-list actor you want to get, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, whatever, so forth. You get them to read the script, like it, whatever, so forth. Okay, we're going to put you in a holding deal. That holding deal is just, all right, if we get everything else we need, we got you, right? Cool. You use that money, or you use that signature and everything else to then kind of snowball everything else, right? Because then you can go back to the studio, you can go back wherever. We got Tom Cruise, we got this, we got that, we got this. Who's interested? Let's make this movie. But you give us this money, you're gonna put this behind it, cool. And that's how you used to form your money to make the movie. So it used to be so much on the actor and A-list actors, it was everything. But because of IP, that's changed. Now we don't need the A-list actor. Now we just need the IP. We just need the popular book, the popular comic book, the popular video game. And then we can get no names and make it work.
Right.
So
and I think the other half of that argument that I said earlier is the fact that those types of movies quite literally saved the film industry, saved movie theaters, that type of thing. But also, the reason I mainly disagree is because, yes, they make a lot of money because of the IP and because of the fan base that's already built in, because it's based on comic books that go back how many years.
Right.
That, in my opinion, is the most beautiful part about it, and why it might not be the same kind of art, but it's not less
art.
than
art. It's still art.
Did you cry your eyes out at Endgame? How many little kids of color did you see that went to see Black Panther and they're like, finally someone that looks like me? Or like America Chavez in Doctor Strange. If you didn't see it yet, you should have already. So sorry if that's a spoiler. But like representation on screen, Marvel especially has done such an incredible job at that. And just, I think just the emotion and the buildup and the feeling around those movies is something that is incomparable to any standalone film or even series of films. Because, I mean, I see that you're both, nerds. I'm a nerd too. Like, I didn't read comic books growing up, but my fiance did, and he made me a nerd. And so if my level of excitement, like I'm getting a Groot tattoo on my ankle next week. That's what level I am. If my level of excitement to see these films is what it is because this world was created so beautifully by Kevin Feige, like all these years ago, and everything is so interlaced, so intricately that like you have to watch the TV shows in between to get the full story of the films. It's just such a cool approach and such a cool concept. I can't even imagine it if my level of excitement to see these films is what it is, what the level of excitement is for someone who grew up reading those comic books to see these characters that they loved so fiercely as kids come to life before their very eyes as adults, and probably got bullied for liking as a kid. That's now like cool to be into this stuff. I can't even imagine what that feeling is like. And they're doing it so well. I read an article recently that, if you saw the Loki series, it came out and said that Loki is bisexual. It's addressed in the show. I just think that they have such a powerful platform. And this goes back to what I said before, as far as like, if you get into this industry for fame and fortune, I'm sorry, we're not going to see eye to eye. That's not my approach. That's not my priority. But I do think that if you end up getting a big platform like that, you have a moral obligation and responsibility to make the world a better place. And I do think that the MCU is doing that despite all the dollars that they're making. And, that kind of addresses your other part of your question about representation in the industry, because that is something that is just so drastically shifting now. And as a white woman, it's ironic that, 15, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, I could have had all the roles in the world. They would have just been handed to me. Now it's the other way around. And I know people that don't feel the same way that I feel about it, but I think it's beautiful, and I think it's about fucking time, and I will happily take a back seat, because if I deserve it, I still have an easier time than other people. And I love seeing it. I absolutely love seeing it. I think the more diverse, the better. And it's going to make me emotional, because I know people that have been working towards their goals for years and years and years and never got an opportunity, that are finally getting opportunities.
Right.
And, if my role in this world is to take a step back and take a back seat so you can have the opportunity, okay.
Yeah, I think, of course, the film industry has changed a lot. I think also a lot of it is the technology. It's becoming easier and easier for other countries, for other people, and other things to make films that they couldn't make before on that scale and that level. Hence a lot of the successes that Netflix has had. I think it's everything's new. Everything's so new with this. It shouldn't be new. In my opinion, that's the effed up part. In my opinion, I'm not mad at anything that's happening right now, good and bad, have flip flop, however it may go. I'm more mad at the fact that, like, no, this should have happened a long time ago. But
the fact that it's a conversation is a conversation. Right. Yeah, exactly. I actually just attended the Jacksonville Film Festival back in January, because I had a short film in the festival, and they had a whole block. This is kudos to them. They had a whole block just for films out of Iraq. And they were telling me that the guy behind the festival was explaining to me that, I don't know how much you guys know about that, but it's like practically illegal to make a film there. It's
really,
it's very, very, it's difficult. It's frowned upon. They really have to like scrap for resources to make a film.
Crazy.
And it's even harder to get it seen, because there are all kinds of laws that prevent them from entering film festivals to get any.
It's their law. They don't want the regime to look bad.
Right. So
anything that looks the regime to look bad.
Yeah. So you do know a little bit. But the guy who runs the Jacksonville Film Festival told me that he had someone from that country reach out and say, we really want to enter the festival, but our laws say that we can't pay to enter a festival. Would you consider maybe giving us a credit and letting us enter for free? Because that's the only way around the law. And he was like, yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sure, it'd be great, to have your submission. And then he got more and more and more and more emails, because they must have gone and told their friends and told their friends. And eventually he had all these films that he had to like cut them down and choose a few, but he let them all enter for free, and enough that he had an entire block, like hours long, of films from that country. And it's probably the only audience that they'll get.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Like I remember going to a film festival. This is back in like this had to be 2008, 2010, maybe. No, maybe like 2010, 2009. South Africa. And to see the level and just where the films were at then, to literally, I would say 5 years later. No, it's a little bit further. Maybe like 8 years later. The level of quality that you saw across the board jump from one to the other was like night and day. and these were a lot of the same directors, same people working on the same films. And it was just like, it became cheaper. And then like, I was like, like your joint before looked like, it was like you did it in your backyard. And this one looked like, he was like, bro, the cameras are so much better now.
The cameras,
like, I'm just going to tell you, the cameras are so much better.
Yeah.
The access to special effects, everything. All of those programs are, I mean, I think, everybody needs to get up to the level of those Bollywood action movies. The ones, exactly what I'm talking about. when we can get to that level, everybody, then we've made it.
It's kind of beautiful that we live in such a creative age too, that, you know, I can't say if it's because of access to this technology or if technology has kept up with demand. But like I said, I just feel like the generations coming up, everybody wants to be an artist. And yes, there are, you know, consequences to that as far as like filling jobs and stuff. But we live in such a creative age, like 10 years ago, I had such a hard time explaining to anyone that I was an actor. They didn't get it. They didn't agree. Now, when I tell people I'm an actor, they think it's just the first of 8 hyphens. Like I'm an actor in 7 other things. Because that's the norm now, is that people are just creative in general. They don't, you know, even focus on one thing. I think I'm a rare breed that I focus on one thing only.
Focus, but
and I think it's still pros and cons to everything. But I think for at least creatives, I can't speak for all the other things out there. We got a lot of problems going on in this country and others. But I think for creatives, we live in a very blessed time.
Yeah.
Whether that time will last, whether that time is everything we think it's going to be, whether it may change, you know, it's once again pros and cons to everything. But
exactly,
we're you know, right now, and for what it is, you need to live it up as much as you can, man. We're in a beautiful time. Harvey Daniel says, wow, this has really been a great episode. Amazing job, everyone. Awesome. And I think that's a good place to leave it off. Thank you to Kevin D. Blackston, Elliot Lopez, John Harvell, everybody for tuning in today. Miss St. Marie, thank you
guys so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
It's been
thank you for hanging in there with us. I know 2 hours sometimes it can get a little grueling, but this has been awesome.
Yeah, no, this was good.
I don't know where the time went, to be honest. I have no idea.
No, this was a fantastic conversation. So yeah, thank you.
Next time, if there's a next time, Rob, we have to coordinate because I have that shirt. I'll wear it.
That's what's up.
For sure.
I'm with it.
Yes, I got a feeling, Miss Marie, we will bump into each other at some point along the journey.
Yes.
And yeah,
100%.
for sure. Thank you so much. And everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much, guys, as always. Same time, same channel, Thursday, 9 p.m. Cre8tive Pit. Let's keep this thing going. Expect more and more clips from us, guys. We've been a little lacking putting the clips out and everything.
We got you. We're
gonna definitely working on putting the clips out more and more. We have so much good content and so much good stuff that creatives have come on and told us, guys. And we're just gonna keep doing the thing. And thank you, everybody. And we're out.
Thank you.
Thank you.